Our next speaker is Rodrigo Davies, who's a master's student in comparative media studies. And the title of his talk is Why We Need Voice. Please welcome Rodrigo.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rodrigo Davis. As you just heard, I'm a second-year graduate student in the CMS program. I'm also a research assistant at the Center for Civic Media, which is a partnership between CMS and the Media Lab, right over that way. How is everybody doing this morning? Good. OK, glad to hear it. Well, I want to tell you about something that's been bothering me quite a lot lately. And that's the fact that the internet and the changes in communication we've seen are making us visio-centric. What does that mean? It means that our interactions are becoming dominated by what we see with our eyes, and we're forgetting about what we hear. Of course, we've all got telephones, and most of us have the ability to use them. But if we want to achieve scale and reach in a networked world, often we're limited to just pictures and text. And we know intuitively that there's something wrong with this. Think about all those occasions in life where you really want to be able to hear something. Think about the president giving an important speech or a marriage proposal. There are some instances in life where a text just won't cut it. Now, I want you all to just close your eyes just for a couple of seconds now and listen to the sound of my voice. Think about the amount of information you're getting right at this moment. You can speculate on my emotions, my age, my gender, possibly where I'm from, all of this, and you can't even see me, for those of you who have closed your eyes. And you can open your eyes now. You may be thinking, OK, interesting, but we have the internet. This belongs to everybody. We can all upload recordings of our voices if we like. But I want you to think about who currently is being given a platform to speak on the internet, who's being invited, and think about the millions of people for whom ubiquitous internet access, the utility that most of us in this room take for granted, think about the people for whom that isn't a reality yet, and it won't be for any time soon. And here's the challenge for me. In an age when we could design the next Siri, which, by the way, still can't understand my accent, even on a British setting, or we could design the next Google Wave, an incredibly complex and sophisticated way of communicating, if anyone remembers it. The challenge for me is to design for the best technology that almost everybody has, our voices. Now, let me digress for a second and tell you, why do I care so much about voice? Well, truth be told, I actually owe my career to my voice and the way I sound. I grew up in Newport in South Wales. It wasn't an easy beginning. By some measures, it's one of the poorest cities in Western Europe. And I grew up in a household of 4 children. My mum did an incredible job of raising us in what over here you'd call a project. We were in the welfare system. But one thing my mum did really well, apart from getting the 4 of us to be the first generation of our family to complete college, was to dream about what we wanted to do next. And I dreamed of being a broadcaster. Unfortunately, if you know anything about Wales, you'll know that the Welsh accent is frequently mocked in mainstream media. The Welsh character is usually the funny one, and not in a good way. And you'll also probably realize that I don't have a Welsh accent at all. So think of me dreaming of being a broadcaster. Who did I look up to? Who did I pay attention to? Well, the journalists at a place like the BBC. I paid a lot of attention to how they sounded. And they sound a little bit like I do now. And that's no coincidence, because fast forward a couple of years after college, and I went to work at the BBC, first as a radio producer, presenter, then a TV correspondent. It was a dream job. I loved it. I was there for 5 years. In 2010, though, I decided to move to Mumbai, to India. My day job at that time was no longer using my voice. I was one of the founding editors of Condé Nast's digital business over there. But I did have my eyes open to an incredible other dimension for using voice, this thing that had benefited me so well. And that was projects like this one you see pictured, which is in Chhattisgarh in central India. where a guy named Subhanshu Chowdhury started the first community media service for an indigenous group of people whose language most of the journalists in India don't even speak. And that's one of the reasons why almost always the only news you'll hear coming out of that region of the world is to do with conflict or politics. And Mr. Chowdhury set up a service where people could exchange news and stories using just their voices and just their telephones. And this got me really fired up. And I was thinking, where can I bring this together, learn more about the power of voice when coupled with scale and impact? And so, of course, I looked at MIT. And since I've been here, I've had the privilege of working with two incredible mentors. Here you see Ethan Zuckerman on the left and Sasha Costanza-Chock on the right. And between them, they've been instrumental in some of the most pioneering work in community media and in audio-based media. And when I showed up here, the group at the Center for Civic Media was just finishing up a project called New Day, New Standard. Here you see some publicity material from it. And this was a hotline that was designed to reach domestic workers in New York State. It was coming at a time when domestic workers had just won their first Bill of Rights. They were going to be afforded the same types of rights that most of us take for granted in our professions. A fantastic victory for this group of people. But a change in legislation, how do you inform people about that? Think about middle to older aged Latina women who are working many, many hours a day. An app is not going to cut it. A paper-based campaign might reach some people, but it doesn't have the scale that you need. And so what the team did with a collection of community partners was to design this hotline. And it wasn't just any hotline. As some of the imagery suggests, it was framed in terms of a telenovela, a soap opera. You call the hotline, and you're told about the changes that affect you in the style of a soap. Are there any soap opera fans in here? OK, nobody's going to own up to it. Well, it was a great success. It was a small-scale project, sure, but it attracted a lot of attention because this was an example of using something supposedly low-tech, supposedly something we all know very, very well, for great impact. It was showcased at the White House. It ended up on the Colbert Report. But of course, with success comes more success, sure, but also a bunch of questions and requests and emails. Most of those were from excited other groups around the country, around the world, saying, "We love the project. How can we build our own? This is fantastic." Unfortunately, at that point in time, our response was, well, we made this great scripting language a few years ago. If you just learn it and set up your own server, you can have your own. Not going to fly for most people. And so I decided to take the leadership and figure out how can we put this in the hands of more people, as many people as possible. So I started a project called Call to Action. And this is a tool that allows anybody with access to a computer to design and deploy their own telephone service, upload their own audio, etc. And this is the kind of project that, for me, really typifies the MIT experience, because this was something that didn't exist before. Of course, it stood on the shoulders of tons of great work other people had already done here, but I decided I wanted to do this. Of course, I was going to need a big team to help me put it together. And so using the Europe system, using the incredible collaboration between research groups, frankly, exploiting the research assistantship I've been lucky enough to have while I'm here, we were able to bring all of these people together from the graduate and undergraduate communities to make this thing in 2.5 months. Now, we've got a lot of work to do, but we're already getting some attention for it, and we're getting plenty of community groups who want to help us test it. And that's the other great part about MIT, getting it out into the real world as quickly as possible. This semester, as a teaching assistant in the Civic Media Co-Design Studio, a hands-on course that we do at the center, we're going to be using the tool with community groups here in Cambridge, which for me is where the real work will begin. It'll be the questions like, Rodrigo, I don't understand what this interface means. Rodrigo, I just found another bug. That's where things really get tough. I believe strongly that allowing people to communicate in their own language, in their own dialect, in the way that they choose, using just their voices, is a beautiful thing and something that we should preserve. In a networked age where often we're striving for the highest, the best, the newest technology, the challenge is to design for the technologies that most people can benefit from. Thank you.